Order. We will call the Brainerd Park Board meeting to order on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022 at 4:01 p.m. At City Hall, Council Chambers. Roll call.
Tim Boder,
Hello.
Kara Schaefer,
Here.
Andrew Scheit,
Here.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer.
Here. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move, Yeager.
Motion, second.
Schaefer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Unheard, motion carries. Consent calendar, notice to public, all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion. We have an approval of minutes. It's full. Disbursements, financial reports, the whole shebang.
Motion to approve, Yeager.
Motion? We have a second. Second by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's get it going. One moment here, unfinished business. Yep. Memorial Park softball lights update.
Yes, sir,
Jesse?
Mr. Chair. So I quick put together a memo that updates the park board. I know they requested some additional information regarding the lights at the softball field, so I did some digging into a few different numbers for everybody. They're included in the memo, so I did include the last year's general maintenance that we were able to put together with utility billing. This is about everything that we were able to collect. There might be some more dollars hidden somewhere else, but this was what was pretty obvious when you looked through the budget analysis. So about $14,000 worth of maintenance and utilities through the last year. And I did include a comment there that depending on what source you look at on the savings of switching over to LEDs, some were 50%, some were up to 90%. I felt that through looking at them, you could probably estimate the savings on electrical costs by switching to LED at about 75%. So I put that number as roughly about a $9,000 savings just in the electric utility billing on a yearly basis. So then to clarify a few things on the options of what can be done on those lights. Generally, what I was able to find is there are really two options, and one is replacing the poles, lights, everything kind of like we talked about previously. The other one is similar to what we talked about with rehabilitation of just replacing the lighting on the existing poles. So what we've discussed before, the full replacement, we did get a quote from Musco in the amount of about $380,000, but that was 2022 dollars. So putting a small bump, we roughly estimated $400,000 in 2023, and that would be for full replacement. So I did do some more research on the process there, and I did find out that Eden Prairie just recently did a sealed bid process for replacing some lighting. And that was top to bottom, everything replaced, and Musco was the low bidder there, and it was pretty close. So I think that Musco is generally a good bidder and a responsible bidder. So I would think that the $400,000 or the $380,000 that they gave us was probably a responsible budgetary estimate. Now it is a budgetary estimate; it is not a quote. If we want to go with them, it would fall within the sealed bid process requirements for contract work like that. So the 380 is not a guarantee by any means. So I do need to do a little bit of a clarification on the memo. You do have a sheet with this budget estimate. So the retrofitting, the cost on that they'd estimated is about $160,000 per field, and that would just be essentially to replace the lighting there. And we did talk about the reduction in warranty, and the warranty would reduce from 25 years down to 10 years by doing the retrofit. So it is a little bit shorter. It's a little bit longer than the 5 years we were talking about, but it is shorter than the 25 that you would get in a full replacement. So to replace both fields, you would be roughly at about 320. At some inflationary for 2023 dollars, you could probably be around the $340,000 mark, and that's just replacing the lighting heads, and I believe the electrical was included in there too. I don't know if I had anything else in here. Generally, the other different types of services, you'll find that there's a lot of different vendors that have a lot of different types of LEDs. It's very similar to like brands of light bulbs in your Home Depot. There's a ton of different brands of lighting. Each vendor has a different type of lighting. Essentially, what you're trying to do is accomplish meeting a certain lighting standard. So like in the Musco budget estimate, you'll see a light level of the 30, 20-foot candles. That's kind of standard for a recreational softball facility. So when you're talking about doing a sealed bid process, you're probably going to spec the necessary light levels for the recreational facility that we're looking at. And whoever is going to bid on that project, be it Century Sports, Musco, or anybody else, they might vary a little bit on what they're planning to provide with how many lights, but generally it has to meet that requirement of the lighting levels. So those are just kind of the different things I was able to find by looking at different vendors. I didn't get a whole bunch of quotes from a whole bunch of other ones, but generally they all kind of fell in the same boat of meeting the same lighting standard for a recreational facility. But other than that, I don't think I had anything else to update outside of the memo. Did the park board have any questions on that?
Thank you, Director T. Any questions, comments? Kevin?
I have a couple. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just a couple of quick questions. Hypothetically, if we were to put this into a competitive bidding scenario, would it be the same companies that would be doing the retrofit that would be doing the full LED replacement?
Depending on, so Musco would probably be one of the bidders if they
Right.
were to do the retrofit. I guess it depends on, I would assume Century Sports probably does too. The Eden Prairie bid had two, and Century Sports and Musco were the only two bidders on that one.
Understood.
And they're pretty typically the two. I don't know if there would be additional ones if you were to do the retrofit.
Thank you. And my follow-up question to that is, do you have any sense of, or do we know approximate lead time to, if we said today that we wanted this work done, what is the lead time or the ramp time to from a green light go to when we could actually execute the work in the real world?
I don't know about 2023. I know in 2022 we had a lot of issues with poles. Not in just our projects, but just projects in general. The poles and the steel was kind of an issue.
As far
it
as
is
being able to have them
acquired
delivered?
quickly. Yep. So I believe if I'm trying to remember MnDOT's lead time, it was roughly about 6 to 8 months on poles. It may be similar in 2023. It might be better. I couldn't tell you that, but I don't think we had the same issue with LED lighting.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware.
All right, very good. Thank you. No other questions right now.
Andrew, do you have something?
Yeah, the memo we have here, it says the existing pole heights are not recommended. Are the poles we have too tall, too short? Like, are they close? Are they way far off?
I'm not sure on that one. That one, Troy, you had a conversation with him on that one.
Rookie.
Okay, so I wasn't aware that they had an issue with the height of the poles. I do know they had an issue with part of the warranty with them cedar poles is they can't guarantee once they come in and install them they're going to aim them, and they can't guarantee that aiming will stay the same because it twists and turns in the poles over time. And they said it reduce a little bit of the candle power and stuff, but as far as the height, he didn't mention that to me. He was a little concerned that if we did decide to go with the wood, that we should probably excavate a little bit around the bottoms of them, check the condition of the underground, check for rot, substantial decay, because he has seen them where those poles look, perfectly good on top, and then they get down there and. So that's one thing, if you guys do decide to go with the retrofit and use the existing poles, we're gonna have to check that out a little closer. And as far as the height, you know, if anything, they're probably too high.
Correct.
So that's easy enough to, you know, trim them off. At least they're not too short.
Cool. Thanks, Troy.
Yeah.
Well, back in my, when I ran my racetrack, Musco was by far, well, not by far, the most respected name in the industry. And they were the quickest and not necessarily the cheapest, but they were very competitive with their bids. And talking with the poles, most of the vehicles that they can't find for lift trucks to work on poles for maintenance are 60 feet. And those poles are 64 feet, so that's kind of the issue there. So they're a little bit too high. They can reach them with a pole, but they're almost 4 feet too long. But I've used the Century and quotes from BSN out of Dallas, and Musco is definitely the leader of the industry. So I can definitely say that their quote is probably the most accurate.
Tim, anyone else?
Yeah, I just have a question. So we are not deciding today if we are approving this. This is just information because we have to find out if we're approved by the budget, by the council for this, correct?
That is correct. We'll have
Okay.
a little snippet when I get to the ARPA discussion.
Got it, okay.
So I have a couple questions. The 22 hours of labor, that's our labor?
Yeah.
And that's doing what, changing lights?
Yeah, changing lights with the help of the fire department is part of that, and replacing breakers on poles, burned out breakers. We've had quite a few instances where lightning has actually hit the poles and blown out the breakers. So, you know, by the time we coordinate with the fire department and get over there with their ladder trucks and get positioned and stuff, you know, it's easily, you know, 4 hours into changing, you know, bulbs and things
So
like that.
they're helping us out.
Oh, absolutely. They're the only ones that have a rig that can reach. And when I say a rig, I'm talking about their brand new ladder truck.
Ladder truck.
Yeah, and part of the issues we run into, like there's some poles now that we can't reach with their new ladder truck. Not so much because of the ladder truck, but some of them holding ponds we put in, we can no longer get close enough. And we can't bring that ladder truck out onto the field because that ladder truck has to be on the ready 24/7, which means it has to be plumb full of water.
Yeah.
And just the weight of that truck alone will bust irrigation lines, leave huge ruts in the field.
So are you saying we've been lucky with some of the lights that have went out? That we would have, we'd have to rent a boom truck to get them, to do it ourselves?
Yeah, since we put in the new holding ponds and stuff, and since they've switched, I don't know when did they get the new ladder truck? Is it a couple of years ago?
It's been a little while.
The new ladder truck is heavier than the other one, and we have brought the other one out onto the field with not good results. They can't risk
Yeah.
getting it stuck.
Yeah, that
Or-
doesn't seem like a good option.
And I can't risk, you know, busting up all them irrigation lines. But, they don't rent a lift anywhere near here, that's tall enough to reach the top of those poles. So even like Holden, I wanted them to come in and replace and check some of the ballast. Well, with all these incandescent lights that are there now, you have to go to the top of the pole to get to the boxes. And granted, we could, you know, enlist the fire department to help us help Holden maybe get up there to a few of them. There's just certain poles we can't reach anymore.
Sure. So I just want to clarify, if we move forward with this and we get new poles and new lighting and we have a 25-year, is it 25-year warranty? Anytime a light goes out, Musco will come and replace that light for no cost?
I'd have to double check on that, but as
Just
far,
not in real time. I mean, they're not going to come in the evening, but
I don't believe
I think
the
equipment-
actual light bulbs are under warranty.
Correct, just the equipment, just the labor to get the replacement taken care of. Not the equipment.
do we have any idea how long the LED lights are warranted?
No.
Hang on a second.
I don't know what the life expectancy is on one of them LEDs, and I don't know if
It
it's,
does say materials and on-site labor, but we'd have to clarify if the actual lights themselves would be included in the materials.
Okay. So if by chance we got into a bad batch of lights and they were just the lights burning out but not electrical issues, that could be our bill, labor and lighting, even if it's 1 year into it, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's possible, even though it does say eliminating 100% of the maintenance cost for 25 years. So in that way, it would imply that the lights are included.
Okay.
But we would have to clarify to make sure.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look at all scenarios here and, you know, 400,000 is a big bill, and I recognize that it's probably the best way to go, but, you know, also I'm looking at, like, okay, 160,000 per field, 10 years versus 25, I mean, that additional 15 years warranty, just what all does that warranty include? And,
Well, just like it says, I mean, your product assurance warranty program includes materials and on-site labor, eliminating 100% of your maintenance costs for 25 years. That pretty much says right there.
but they're saying they don't know if that covers lights, LED lights. I'm sure
Energy
are
and
not
maintenance
cheap.
costs includes materials and on-site labor. I would assume,
Can we just clarify that? Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
if I may, please, thank you. It seems like our very first step, no matter what we do on this, is to just iron out all of these details, what the pricing structure might look like. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we ask our staff to facilitate a competitive bidding scenario on the ball field lights for both full new replacement as well as a retrofit replacement, and to ask the vendors that would be submitting these bids to include the items such as capital replacement, cost of operation, warranty aspects, performance expectations, and time frame to execute.
With time frame being a huge
Absolutely.
part of this.
Our first step is we got to know the price and know who might do this, so sooner we get our bids and get this turned in, the better.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't want to be doing this during season next summer, right? Or we just have to reschedule games that none after dark.
Troy, can you tell the members of the board how long Field 3 and how they implemented or put those in, the Field 3 lights? How long that took? Yeah, and when they did it?
I don't think it took very long. It's just a matter of getting it here and,
Yeah, I don't remember what the lead times were on the, on the equipment. Actually, Tony took care of that whole situation. So as far as that, I have no idea. But I know when they did get in there and they actually started to when they were done, it was a week.
yeah. I remember that. It wasn't more than a week, I'm sure of that. But those other things that Kevin's talking about, I think are important to, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't very long once they got started. It's just
No, it was
knowing that.
they knew what they were doing. They got everything there, and it was. I mean, they've done. They do. That's all they do.
Sure.
So in and out.
Okay. Yeah. Mayor Bedell?
Yeah, just two questions that I'd like staff to add to the list is, would the reduction in the size of the pole allow us to find better ways of doing maintenance if there was a problem? So by not having the poles quite so high, would we be able to use a different apparatus that is not the fire truck? And just find out if that's a possibility, because that would make a huge benefit for us if something was to happen. And then just secondly, just side by side, get some numbers for what our softball program brings in terms of teams and whatnot, just because I think we should be comparing what those are when we're making these decisions. Because just based off of a basic analysis of this, even if we have that 75% reduction in the efficiency of the electrical, we're still looking at about $3,000 plus the additional for the lights themselves at $400,000. You're probably looking at roughly $20,000 a year for these two fields. So, we have 3 fields, so I don't know if that equals out to $30,000 or what are we actually paying for these fields as well. So I think it's not saying that is or is not the right decision, but we should have all those numbers on the table when we make those decisions.
Good. Andrew, did you have something else?
Oh, the packet just has the budget for softball through September, 46,000 in revenue so far this year.
That's not including expenses?
Correct. 34,000 in expenses.
Soft expenses, not capital.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm just saying that we should put all those numbers next to each other.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll amend my motion to include the exploration of the reduction of the pole size.
Okay. Did you get all that?
Is it, it's you, not Kim, right? Okay, got it. To include the exploration of the reduction of the pole size in the retrofit scenario, if that has an impact in cost. It's obviously not an impact on the full replacement.
So I do want to clarify, sealed bid process, we would not be awarding a bid, correct? Because it's not an adopted budget item.
That's correct, but my thinking here is, guys, if I may, is that we could at least get the bidding process going here, because I believe that because of the timeframe constraints, the first step is to have the bids in hand, so that if we decide to move on it, either with our own budget or with ARPA funds or however, we have the information in front of us to make an educated decision and turn and burn. That's my thinking.
Okay. So to clarify, timing, because the vendors that are going to bid on it are going to want to know timing. I think there might be some trepidation on what that number looks like if we haven't given them a hard deadline that it will be constructed in 2023. So am I saying sealed bid throughout the open December and then potentially award in January?
Potentially, I mean, we're not obligated to accept any bid. So if we said that this work was with a mindset of this work would be done during the 2023 season, again, I don't know the time frame on how long to get poles and lights, but assuming it could be done before the 2023 season, that would be the objective here. And then it will be, it'll be up to us whether we choose to move forward with those or not.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second shape.
Okay, any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Director Dean. Troy? Let's move on to new business, MLT project update.
So I'm actually going to turn it over to Matt first, then I think I'll come in afterwards.
In lieu of saving time, can we just move from this into each of the change orders as well, 8, 9, and 10,
Sure. You want me to present those as well?
please?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we've made a lot of progress on the construction in the MLT park since the last meeting we've had here. We've been placing a lot of concrete, a lot of the walk is going in. The restroom structure has been erected up to the top of the block walls. The hillside overlook has been seeded. We're bringing in dormant trees, and those are being planted right now. A lot of the topsoil's been roughed in. You can really see quite a bit of a difference out there right now. They've started working on the river steps area, so they actually just placed the pavers that go down the slope to the canoe kayak launch here today, and then a lot of the block has been laid. We're waiting on some of the caps for the blocks for the amphitheater and the river steps. Moving forward, we're just trying to continue to push the contractor to get as much concrete walk done as possible this season, and then focus on doing the vertical building structures through the winter. We've been working with Jesse to deal with the contract time. In change order 7, the sodding, the park board approved to do that in the spring. So the completion date, the final completion date was moved out to May 15, 2023. This is still in line with what the park board is expecting to have the project complete in early spring. And then we're pushing them to continue to work on all other items that they can over the winter months, and as much of the concrete work that they can get in this season while the weather is still good. Forgot to mention that the final lift of paving was also done, so the roadway and trail have been completed and are open to the public. We just need to get striping on at some point, and that's another discussion for if it's appropriate to do during this weather or not. But anyways, we're in discussions with the city to determine how to keep the contractor moving forward. They seem to have the intent to meet the schedule to open in early spring, summer of 2023, which was the original intent. So I don't know if Jesse's got any comments on what the progress that they've been making out there.
Nope, just to echo that they've made a lot more progress lately. WSB and I have kind of reached out to CVI a couple weeks ago and had a very frank conversation about their progress to date and our concerns. I know the park board's been concerned about the progress to date and them trying to complete within a reasonable time frame. Since then, they've obviously made some really great strides out there. I think that I wish they would have done that a little bit sooner. But they are making good strides, and they are limited by some material availability. He mentions in here, like some of the retaining wall caps, they're only manufacturing like 6 a day. So they're kind of held back by that, but they are going to continue working on it as much as they can throughout even the winter season. So it'll be nice to have it done in spring, but unfortunately, we're not going to have most of it done in the fall like we were expecting. Part of that was on them for their progress up to date, but some of it is material availability too.
Any questions on progress?
Anyone? Carrie?
Can we give an update to the public? Or like, do they have to attend this meeting in order to know that? I don't know. I think it would be kind of nice for the public to know what's going on. So I don't know if that's like a press release or something, how that works.
We can do a press release and a social media blast. I know Tony once in a while will post update pictures of the project, so I think I'll get some updated photos for her and have her put a blast out, but we'll also put a press release too.
Yeah, is anyone going to be on community focus anytime soon from the city? I feel like you guys have a...
They lock up community flow. Yeah, we do. Yeah, they have like a monopoly on community focus.
She has a running gig.
She does, yes.
So it might be nice. Maybe you can go on there, or she can talk about it. But just it's kind of a big deal, and we were excited. It's a really cool thing to look forward to. The road's open. Whatever, we want to get people. They can check it out now without feeling like they're trespassing. Maybe I don't know. Just
That's a big deal. I mean, it's been
Positive.
closed off for a long time, so just people don't even know it's open probably, I'm sure.
right.
Yeah, one thing we would ask is that if you do that, just ask people to still slow down as they're going through the project, because there is construction vehicles coming in and out of that site, and we've had a lot of traffic that is just zipping through there right now. So it's just a little bit of a safety concern. So if that could be mentioned in that update, that'd be great.
Good idea, Carrie. Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just run through the change orders quick, 8 through 10, and then if Jesse has anything to add.
We'll be doing a motion on these individually, I'm assuming, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so change order 8 was to replace the light fixtures in the amphitheater area. In construction, we discovered that the fixtures were gonna be too large, and we had to move them to a slightly different spot and cut out of the block wall instead of putting them in the steps. So that's all that change order was. then change order
So let's
9.
go just one at a time.
Yeah, so did we must have already had the lights in possession? Is that what happened here?
So we have to still get the lights from the contractor, the larger fixtures. But they were unable to return them.
So that's my question. They couldn't be returned?
Right.
Any questions, Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who originally selected the light fixtures?
I'm not sure. They were recommended by a lighting specialist for this project. I think we had a
Under
consultant.
WSB's watch, right?
I believe with the help of the city, they were selected.
Selected the vendor, but so there, let me, so I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So there's another sub-vendor that's providing the lighting that actually said, we want these light fixtures to go in these steps.
I wasn't a part of the selection meetings for these, so I'm not exactly sure how it went, but there was a supplier that assisted the city and WSB in selecting the light fixtures.
Understood. And that supplier worked with WSB to say, hey, these lights are going to fit in the steps you guys have designed.
Yeah,
Okay. So my question for both of you, you're recommending we approve this change order. My question for both of you is, I'm having trouble getting my head wrapped around the idea that this issue should be paid for by the taxpayers, not either WSB or this lighting vendor. So help me understand.
we made some field changes when this was discovered and put it into the block instead of the steps, which is actually ending up to provide a better product for the amphitheater.
Understood. So WSB made a decision on the site to say, hey, these lights aren't as good, aren't really what we envisioned. We want to get some other lights.
They were the same fixture, just a smaller size that were able to fit in a more convenient spot.
Gotcha. The WSB at that time asked, hey, are these other light fixtures in a box somewhere, sitting in a building at Brainerd? Who are they been paid for? What we got cooking here?
Yes, we had to verify that they were not able to be returned so that they would end up being the property of the city.
Okay. The idea is we're gonna, what, sell these in a rummage sale, or what? We just keep these for future projects? What?
They would be available for future projects.
Okay, understood.
As long as they fit.
Do we have any future amphitheater projects?
We do not.
Okay.
It wouldn't have to be for specifically an amphitheater. They could be for lighting along a path or any other means.
One follow-up question, sir. When was this discussion, or when was this talked about? When did this happen on these lights? This change to the new light fixtures, all of that? When did this happen?
We had to decide out in the field because there were material lead times that needed to get this ordered in order to put it in this season.
Understood. 2 months ago, 1 month ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago?
It was probably 2 to 3 months.
Okay, got it. Well, I just want to be clear with the group.
Yeah,
There's no way I'm going to support this change order.
I'm not either without any further knowledge about some of the things that Kevin brought up, especially with the wording here, called for by the plans and specifications. So, again, I don't think that's our deal to make sure that whatever the plans and specifications called for, that we have to pay for that if somebody misses that. And then we have to use something else. And we already have them on board, we have them ordered, we have them on board. I get we have to order things in a timely fashion to get them, but finding out the day we need to be putting them in that they don't fit, that's, we have plans and specifications for a reason, and that's why we have an engineering company running this. So I think my spiel on this is we need to know more information on this as we did before. Unless we want to vote today. If we vote today, my vote is definitely going to be a no on this. But any further comments?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a cascade of the trust problems we talked about last week with, the extra hours coming in and not having had that surface kind of in a timely manner. And it hurts to go from, well, we need another $50,000 because we spent so much time in planning. And I see something like 1,100 hours spent on concept, preliminary, and final. And then this month, after we paid that, because we did so much planning, to hear the light fixtures we bought don't fit really stings.
Sure.
So I am having a hard time. Like the cost is relatively small compared to the last one, but it stings, and I think it in a vacuum, sure, something happened, but it feels like it's kind of cascading, and I mean, there's 2 other change orders that, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. It feels bad.
My vote is that WSB just bought $7,000 worth of lights, the way I look at it.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this change order.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mayor Bedell,
I will wait till there is a second.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, and further discussion?
Just a question for Jesse. What would denying the change order do? Like, do we just not have lights for the amphitheater then?
We will have to figure out how that's gonna get paid for, because I believe that contractor's already ordered the lights.
They're already installed.
So if we don't pay for it at this point, that could put us at liability for a claim. So somebody's gonna have to pay for the lights because they are installed, but we'll have to figure out how that works if it is denied.
Well, if it is an outside vendor, I sure hope WSB goes to help the back of the city of Brainerd, who had nothing to do in this, and make an angle for the case that this lighting contractor now owns these lights.
Mayor Bedell?
Yeah, I just have a question about what we do with lights that we have no purpose for, but now would own. And the biggest issue I have with it is that this project is funded through other funds. We got funding for this project. We can't just take lights and just hang on to them and then use them for another project. If that was the case, we should have been taking the extra $500,000 and just buying playground equipment and then putting it somewhere else. I would have a huge problem with us just having lights from a project that was funded through an outside source and then just finding something to do with them. I don't appreciate that type of mentality.
World's worst money laundering scheme.
It would cross barriers for me.
Well, but especially with the fact that they're already installed, this is a $7,000 change order, and they're just assuming that we're just gonna foot the bill for it. You know, to me, there should have been a halt in what was going on and saying, we don't know if they're gonna pay for this or not.
So
No?
the park board only meets once a month, and we're trying to maintain the schedule of this project. So if we have concerns about material lead times and being able to deliver the project on time and not holding up the contractor, there is some decision-making that we have to do out in the field.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Well, it would appear that in this case, the decision-making was not prudent, to be
Sure.
perfectly honest. I mean, it's not carte blanche, just spend the taxpayers' money at a whim, I just don't see it that way. I mean, if we gotta call a special meeting, we gotta call a special meeting. We have to hold off on installing some lights, we gotta hold off on installing lights, but to me, this didn't play out right.
Agreed. Any further discussion? Jesse, you have anything to add? No? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, so this one is denied. Hopefully we'll figure this out. Change order 9.
Change order 9. The plan provided for the foundations to be reassessed by a structural engineer once the precast beams were determined for the structure. So the precast beams ended up getting ordered after the foundation was designed. Additional reinforcement was then required because of the weight of the structure on top of the foundation. And that is the cost for this change order. And then the lighting for the electrical units got moved into the beam as a part of discussions on precast instead of being a conduit on the outside of the beams.
Comments?
Makes sense.
I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but we're talking the same thing. you know. Not the same, but similar, that the structure was determined the concrete foundation reinforcement had to have additional reinforcement added as directed by the structural engineer. And maybe it is that?
This was kind of
common in,
planned for because we didn't know exactly what the precast beam design was going to be until we got a shop drawing from the precast supplier. So until that was determined, we didn't know the full weight of the structure above. We just provide specifications, requirements for what the structure was going to be, but then the final details of the weight of the structure, the weight of the load on the foundation was determined once we had the shop drawing for the precast beams.
I have a question for staff, Mr.
Yes.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I've asked this question before a couple times. I'm trying to fret out the differences between what types of overages come out of the contingency versus being add to the primary contract. So this, to me, feels like would be a contingency item, but perhaps not. So, Mr. Dean, could you just please shed a little light on what category these go into? The contingency stays untouched and we add this to it, or this comes out of the contingency?
In my practice and in my history, usually any unforeseen changes like this would be taken out of contingency.
That's what I'm thinking. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Director Dean. Any further discussion?
Actually, just
Yeah.
one more question. When did the structural engineer identify that there needed to be more reinforcement?
It was highlighted in the plan that the structural reinforcement would need to be assessed once the precast beams were determined. So this was kind of always planned for, that it would have to, not necessarily additional reinforcement be applied, but it would have to be evaluated at that point.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
Move to approve change order 9.
Second, Yeager.
We have a motion, and a second.
One quick thing, just under the caveat that this is coming out of the contingency, not being added to the total contract amount. Will you amend your motion to that?
I will.
Thank you.
Okay. We have an amended motion that it would come out of the contingency. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Change order 10.
Change order 10 is for additional grading work to meet ADA standards on the sidewalk that goes to the hilltop overlook. We initially surveyed it in, and once the contractor graded it out, we determined that it wasn't going to meet the grades required for running slope on what would need to be federal ADA standards for a sidewalk. So we had to restake it, and the contractor had to re-excavate some additional material.
So this cost is for them having to re-excavate? Who did the surveying?
WSB.
Comments? Gary?
How did it change? If the hill was,
So originally, we were going to just follow the slope of the hill and create a straight line to the overlook, to the trail. But it was determined in the field that the slopes actually ended up being too steep for the running slope for the ADA needs. So we had to field fit a change to the survey.
Are there Are there certain codes that tell slopes of what's acceptable and what
There's
isn't?
federal guidelines for ADA.
Are you guys aware of what they are? Is WSB aware of what they are?
That's why we made the change.
But they had already done the excavating once and then they had to do it a second time, is that correct?
So we staked out the line and then we had to verify that the field situation of the running slope it did not end up meeting the ADA standards, so we had to lower portions of the trail and flatten it out, and then we had a steeper slope embankment into the trail, or the sidewalk, I guess, but
Okay.
we
Dr.
ended
Dean,
up,
do you have any comments on this? Is this similar as far as contingency? Where do you see this?
Very similar. I'd have to see how much we have available in our contingency, but again, this kind of fits into the, I'll call it unforeseen changes. That would be in part of a project. Usually that's how I've treated contingency in the past, is when you encounter field changes, contingency is usually the funding source for those.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, so just a question that I have, just as a general process of construction, is in many cases, before excavation begins, a field staking will happen to shoot heights. This is where the surveyor comes out to the site, says top of the hill's over there, the bottom of the hill's over here, here's our grade in between. Let's get these points established before we roll in prime movers and start moving excavation. Did that just not happen, or? What I'm asking is what, there's a typical process of a step of a grade or a bench height being approved before excavation begins. Had that have been done in this case, we should have caught that the pitch was not able to be achieved on the site before excavation.
yeah, so we surveyed it in basically according to the plan. Several of the locations worked along the path, but in the end, the overall slope did not work, so we had to come in and correct it.
I see.
I have to say, part of this, I think, is just coming from, what we've done with the $58,000 in change orders already. So we're gonna scrutinize everything that comes down here. And so, a lot of this that we're talking about, these 3 change orders, to me today, are stuff that's been bungled, and we're being asked to pay for it. But if somebody wants to make a motion, we can do that.
Well, I'm not gonna make a comment first. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of projects in my 11 years and last year of doing these park board deals. And the vendors always seem to have a bid, and they're pretty, obviously, certain things happen, obviously. But this is almost like having a Kool-Aid stand, and you have $1 for a glass of Kool-Aid, and the next door neighbor comes in and says 50 cents. Oh, but we forgot to put sugar in the Kool-Aid, so we're gonna charge you $1.50 now. So it just seems like that we're getting what we agreed on for the bid is not what we're getting in return.
This change order is not to pay WSB. This change order is to pay the contractor for the work that they've done on site.
But you guys did the structure and all the engineering of the facility.
Correct.
The excavator turned in the bid based upon the survey, based upon the drawings that was presented for the bidding process, correct?
Correct.
And then couldn't be realized because of real life topography on the site. The change had to be made. The excavator said, hey, we didn't anticipate that. Here's your bill, right? Basically?
Yes.
Any other comments? Andrew?
I'd just add, I think your explanation of this makes a lot more sense than, I guess, how it was presented in the agenda item. So I don't know if there were some crossed wires, but hearing that the slope, right, it just physically didn't work compared to what was planned makes a lot more sense to me than the overlook did not get surveyed in as per plan. That's like somebody forgot to do something, and in reality,
Yeah,
the
it
physical
probably
world was-
wasn't worded correctly when I wrote the change order that way.
yeah, but I mean, hearing the explanation, like you can't plan for the slope of things until you get out there and measure, so.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll Make the motion to approve change order number 10.
Second shape.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
I believe we had 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's move on to item E, approve memorial tree policy revision. Director Dean?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So this is the current memorial tree policy, states that we have a minimum of a 2-inch ball and burlap tree. We are just asking that we look at a revision for that because with the current practice, it really limits the different types of species that can be purchased locally. Typically what we see is maples and lindens, and that's about it. So when you're talking about trying to diversify throughout town, especially in the sense for disease, this really makes it tough for us to diversify and allow people to get different types of species. And then the same context, there's not a lot of nurseries that do 2-inch ball and burlap anymore. So talking with James Kronvik, who's a little bit more familiar about landscaping in general, his recommendation is to make the change to 1.5 inches and or 15 gallons, or roughly about the same. But this would greatly diversify the ability to bring a lot of different types of species and bring in a few different types of vendors that could supply the trees.
By golly, I think we have an easy one here.
I'll make a motion to approve. Jaeger.
Second, Boulder.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Director Dean. And we'll move on to approve cancellation administrative fee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So everything's moving on to the online system, so we're looking at requesting changing the administrative fee schedule to be able to charge for cancellation and or refunds for park facilities and or campgrounds. Right now, we do not have any of these fees in there. We do have a deposit required at the campgrounds for certain events, but not for every single reservation. Obviously, with the online reservation system, our time's a lot more limited compared to what our current practice is. So it'll be a little bit more efficient, but we will need to go in there and address any time that there is cancellations and or refunds. So this can also cause us issues if we have a late cancellation. Might have an empty campground site. If somebody cancels within maybe a couple days, people may not be aware that that site's available anymore. So looking around at different areas, a lot of different campgrounds have deposits or fees, depending on, and you can see that list in the attached. So we're recommending having the proposed administrative fees for cancellations, and they're just based on how far in advance of the reservation that they would be canceled, depending on the fee. I'll leave it over to questions. Excuse me.
And all those fees are on the next page, right? Are those recommendations?
Yes, sir. They're in the, let's call it bottom third. The two, there's one for the Lum Park campground and one for the park facilities.
Okay. I just have one question. Does this adjust it at all if it's a 1 week reservation or a 1 day reservation? Is there any difference?
Not
Does
as it's
that,
written.
does that make a difference in what we would do here?
I don't think so.
Or are you thinking like a percentage instead of?
Well, if they're canceling on 1 day versus a week or a week and a half, and they do that 3 days before they're showing up, is that something that we would take a higher percentage of the fee that they would have paid? Or I know that gets to be a little more cumbersome, but if we just put a percentage on it, if it's 7 days or more, or?
What if it's in the middle? Because if it's 3 days in advance, they get no money back. So if they were blocked it for a week, do they get the money just for the last 4 days?
Yeah,
So in this proposal, we do have the full advance payment for, so even if it's a week long, we're gonna get that week-long payment ahead of time. Now, if they cancel, weeks ahead of time, they'll get that, all the way back. The $10 administrative fee. That's just to cover the little bit of time that we'll have to do to reopen it on the site. And hopefully, it's tough to say, but hopefully 10 days is enough for people to recognize that that site's open for even for a week and hopefully fill that up with reservations. It's tough. I mean,
Sure.
it's situational based, but.
and it makes sense. That tree thing was too easy. I thought I'd add something to this one. But,
I think, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think I'm okay with any cancellation policy as long as the people know about it and can get the information really easily. If it's hidden in the fine print, then you get into a snag, but if, as long as this goes out and people know about it, I'm good with this.
I'm not opposed to many hotels, as you see many of you booking hotels online, you get a hotel for $89 if you pay in advance with no refund. If you don't pay in advance, it's $129 a night. So if they want to pay in advance, they maybe get some kind of discount with no refund, or no guarantee that they're going to get any money back. I don't know why hotels are any different than a campground.
Do you think $10 is enough for the 10-day out? Could we bump it up to 20 or 30?
do we have
I
a
mean,
waiting list typically?
Like, we'll fill it 10 days, if with 10 days in advance, we'd fill it, right?
We usually turn people away, so 10 days, it'd be pretty unusual if we couldn't fill that.
Okay.
That seems good then.
Can always revisit if we have an issue.
And yeah, this would be something new, procedurally, so see how it goes. We just need to have that fee established by the board so that we can implement it in 2023.
So what, would we just put something on the website?
We'll update everything. We'll update our brochure, any social media, the website, all of that. The online reservation system.
You're
It'll
gonna come
all
back and do that?
Yep, that's why we need to know if we can do this, so.
Okay, any further discussion?
I wouldn't mind seeing the fees higher, but $10 is nothing to risk your reservation 10 days in advance.
What would you guys like to see?
I'd rather go half your reservation fee, especially if we have a waiting list. Make it 50% instead of $10.
What could that look like if it was 50% of a 7-day?
Well, that's gonna involve more staff time as far as, okay, your visit is 6 days now, we owe you for 3 days versus a flat fee. We were trying to keep it simple from an administrative side of things, especially the first time out doing this. That was our thought.
Let me ask this, what if we bumped it up $10? Are these finances something that we could track over the year, over the summer, and say, we received this much in cancellation fees? So we could look at it next year and say, we had this many cancellations that brought in this, this many funds, is it worth that, or?
We've only collected deposits historically for holiday weekends and NHRI week. So we've never charged other than that non-refundable deposit for those 4 events throughout the season. So this is revenue, is what it is, that we haven't had before for every reservation.
Okay.
I don't know how it'll work for tracking.
It-
It's brand new software we haven't used yet.
That's what I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time tracking it either, and wasting money trying to determine,
You'll see it in the
spend
revenue.
$100 to see if and find out that we made $50 on this during the summer or during the camping season, but.
I get a
Is this
lot of
just a good place to
cancellations.
start? If we can track it, is this a good place to start, I guess, is what I'm,
We can set it up in the budget to track it. But ideally, the number is 0 throughout the year.
okay.
We get a lot of cancellations and it's a lot of, not a lot, but some extra work on staff side. So this is just kind of to, accommodate that.
Okay. Other comments? Tim wants to see it higher. I mean,
If it's a moneymaker, why not? It's just gonna guarantee we have those campers in those spots, those days. If they're
Well,
not.
it's
then we'll at least-
$50, Tim, for 3 to 9 days in advance.
that's pretty good.
Right, but then it also puts it on you to
That's
go
what
back
I'm
and call
thinking.
back on the waiting list to call and see if they can come in for the rest of that weekend, correct? Or someone besides yourself?
Yeah, if, that may change also procedurally with the advent of online reservations. Somebody might just hop online and fill it immediately. I don't know if the software might do that. If we establish that we are gonna allow waiting lists for campsites, so. Not sure how all that'll work yet.
What if we just moved the first one up to $20 and left the $50 and left the other one at $10 for the facility rentals?
I like
Love
that.
it.
That sounds like a motion.
Okay,
I'll make that as a motion, Jaeger.
Second shape.
There we go.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. None being heard, motion carries.
There, we doubled our money.
Doubled it. Just on one.
See?
Thank you.
The slimy sales guy comes through again.
Emphasis?
Slimy.
Part. All right, let's move to the alternate ARPA project mentioned.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So this is more of just informational. So we brought the ARPA funding recommendations to the council, and there was some discussion at their workshop on October 11th. Generally, the council appreciated the work that the park board put into their list and agreed with most of the recommendations. The skate park project option was generally not included in their recommendations. That was pretty widespread throughout the entire council. The remaining projects generally were accepted. There was a couple no's on the campground. I think there was some concern about the potential for an agreement with the adjacent property owners. I did some cursory looks on that one. I couldn't find anything in our files. There might be one in a file somewhere, but I couldn't find it right off of my cursory look. And then there was one no on the Memorial Park Phase 2. But generally, most of the funding was somewhere in a range of $550,000 to $592,000. There was one outlier that was like $700, but generally it was somewhere in that $500 something $1,000 mark for a recommendation from the council. So the first council meeting in November is hopefully going to have more of a set number for ARPA funds for the Parks Department. So we'll be able to kind of determine how the Parks Board wants to spend X amount of dollars, whatever that's going to be. I did want to also mention that Councilmember Johnson brought up the funding, not necessarily of the master plan, but items in the master plan for the Trailhead Park. And replacement to the Gregory Park Fountain, and this got echoed. The Gregory Park Fountain was echoed by Council President Bevins. So just wanted to make sure that it mentioned to you, those mentions were brought up. They weren't really specified for an amount on those projects, but just brought them up. So I wanted to make sure that the park board was aware of that, was the discussion there. So at the next park board meeting, the intention will be to bring I guess let's call it the final list of ARPA project recommendations, or at least have the park board act on what the final recommendations will be, as well as a final operating capital recommendations to be brought to the first council meeting in December, where the final budget and levy will be adopted.
Thank you, Director Dean. I don't know that we'll have a change in our priority of our list. If the ARPA funds are in the 500, I think, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our list is probably going to, we pretty much solidified our priorities on that, and, I don't think the Gregory Park Fountain had any bearing in any of that. I think we briefly discussed that in our master plan, and
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what do they want to do with that fountain?
That's my question too.
I mean, 6, 7 years ago, we spent $400,000 to fix the fountain we had.
Kelly has multiple times said that does not believe it is grand enough. So those sentiments are echoed from Council President Bevins often. So
I mean, I understand it's only a 6-foot fountain as opposed to 18 or whatever, but
it's on brand for him to mention the grandioseness of the fountain or the lack thereof. So I took it as a comment that is made very regularly. So.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
do we get final say in what we get to choose for the ARPA? I just want to make sure, so like, all of a sudden the fountain doesn't become, I mean, do we really get to say what the
Yes.
funds are spent on?
Yeah, so to clarify a little bit, Councilman Johnson's comments were based off of looking at the list and saying, there's some things I would add to our list. So we had your guys' list, we had lists from BPU, we had lists from all the other departments, police department, and then going through and with dollar amounts, looking at which one we thought we would allocate funds to. His comments were more of, there are some other things I think we could do, and it wasn't just park related. He had just mentioned multiple projects. So there is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but the way I understood it was that Connie was asking very specifically for the Parks Department, and what was the other department as well, that she wanted more solidified.
I believe it's capital.
Okay, that might be correct. Yep, yeah. She was looking for a pretty solid number from the council as to what they were thinking, and it seemed to be right around the 550 mark. Is my basic math that I remember.
Most of them were 555.
555,
but there was a couple that were 580, and I think one was 592.
Okay, yep. So somewhere around the 550 to 580 was, yeah, somewhere around in that range. And it from what I gathered from it, that was not necessarily in stone, but very, very solidified, because Connie was asking pretty specifically, we'd like to get the parks part allocated so that you guys can start looking at what you would be doing with that. But it would be based off of the list that you presented. They basically looked at that list and we said, these are their priorities in order, and then the dollar amount was from that. So what you would need to do is then take that dollar amount, which is, over a third of the total funds, and then look at what you wanted to do. And I agree, you've created a list, and that's what they appreciated, was that you took the time to create the list. So sticking with that list as much as possible. If something needs to be flipped or moved around, there were comments about various different items, but there was overall a lot of positivity to all of it. The skate park was just a outlier that the council said they just don't feel that they're to that point where they want to throw public money at it. They think that, public money at it. They think they need to continue looking at private funds. So, but for the most part, yeah, it sounds like you're probably 550 to 580, somewhere in that range. And that's my assessment of it was a pretty solidified number. So,
Cool. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right. Okay.
And just to quick clarify, all of the projects on the list, minus the skate park, equals 705. So if they do award a number less than 705, then it's determining which is the next one out.
I think, obviously, we'll have discussion, but I think we'll probably start from the back and move up as far as taking stuff off from there. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. We will move on to the approved proposed master plans for Gregory, Triangle, Buffalo, and Lyons. And thank you, Kevin, for putting those together.
no kidding.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just quickly go over this. You guys remember that
the idea or the mechanism that these drawings serve is just kind of a global macro view of what we think the future looks like. That doesn't necessarily mean that the trucks are going to roll in there and this would happen. Before we took on any of these projects, we would hire outside firms to help us with developing the plans and so forth. So just think of these as the basic idea of where we think we might be going, so that when conversations do come up with in the interim with where would we put our playground, yada yada, we could come back to these and say this is kind of what we were thinking. So I'll just walk you through it, starting at the top. Triangle Park there. You can see that the image that's on there already has our updated playground area. You can see that I've added some trees, some mature trees growing around there. That park is somewhat devoid of trees. And then we have some bags to some in-ground bag structures. There you go, right there to the westerly side. These have become quite popular in parks around the state. And then some potential shade structures with trees and benches towards the easterly side of the park, kind of clustered along where exactly those triangular shapes are those fabric shade structures is what those are kind of intended to point out. But this is a pretty simple park. We still got our sign there in the corner, and I think we've kind of captured what our basic conversation was there. We can either stop and talk about this one, or I can keep going.
Any comments, questions? Yep, Andrew?
Oh, you have lit flagpole? That was the only thing that didn't quite fit for me.
Yeah, I only had it on there because it came up in the notes. So if it's not something we want as a group, then we can sure take it back out of there or eliminate it when we move on. So.
Any other questions? The bags, is that the cornhole?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Katie?
I just wanted to mention, was it part of your vision that we would have like crosswalks? And I didn't know if that was something we all kind of agreed on. Just that the location in itself is like a median and having safe routes to it.
Yeah, I can speak on this actually. I believe you will find this in our notes or in our meeting notes from last year, specifically when we were talking about the design standards, and that all of our parks, as we upgrade the streets and sidewalks in the adjacent areas to those parks, would be getting ADA crosswalks and approaches.
As well as sidewalks?
That's interesting. The combination of like you start getting two different departments involved then, because technically you're talking about like the right of way and that sort of thing. It probably gets outside of the jurisdiction of the park. If the council would probably decide whether or not the crosswalk or the sidewalk would go in, but I would definitely plan accordingly for, especially on the south side of this, the perfect spot for a sidewalk to go through. So
yeah, I'm remembering a conversation saying we didn't even have the ability to control that. It was controlled by American with Disabilities Act and what new sidewalks pathways have to be.
And then the council will probably be the ones that would make those decisions. Unless it's within the park itself, the council would probably make the decision of connecting crosswalks. But I will say this, that Jesse and I had a short conversation, and prior to him, Paul and I had a long conversation about North Brainerd and what the connecting missing pieces are for sidewalks, and that was one of the pieces, was along that south side there. There is a sidewalk to the east. There's potential to connect it on the west, and so there would possibly be something there, which would include that in crosswalks.
3 or 4 block chunk that doesn't have sidewalk on, in front of Triangle Park, connecting up towards your house.
Yep, and there's just a couple of those pieces in North that are missing, stuff like that. Our goal would be to have crosswalk on one side or the other for sure, and in some places connecting both. But yeah, absolutely, crosswalks would be in the consideration. But it's probably good to show the council where you would think that you would like to see something, because then when they come forward, that's already been solved. You know, they don't even necessarily have to ask. Jesse can just bring that forward and say, in the master plan, they've shown that they think a crosswalk would go here.
Okay, very good. Troy, you guys got enough weed whacker wire to mow this park after you put all those trees in there?
All right, continuing on to Gregory. Gregory got a little bit of a facelift here. You can obviously pick out the structures that are existing, the existing ice rink, the existing tennis courts, and so forth. You will notice that as per our discussion, one of the items that came up was the possibility of relocating the bandstand to the center court. Obviously, this is just thrown in there hypothetically now. There are many, many steps that would have to happen for that to actually take place, but I do kind of like the idea. And you'll also see that part of our feedback from the Brainerd Northsiders was to create trees coming down towards the southern side, towards the fountain, in somewhat of a colonnade type shape or a more structured shape. So I kind of indicated that with maybe future planting going down both sides. There you go, right down through there, in somewhat of a symmetrical layout there. To the lower left, you'll see that we talked about relocating the playground into that sunny, wide open kind of space to allow for room for potentially another basketball court down there in the lower left. Other than that, it stayed basically the same. And yeah, unless I missed anything, I think that's kind of it. We decided to we're talking about keeping our playground on the easterly side, southeasterly side as well. And of course, our leaning tree and all of that. So not a huge change here.
Alberto?
Yeah, so I missed this one. So this is the first time I'm getting to see this. Love everything. Bandstand, you may get some flack from the community. So just be aware of that.
Understood.
Yeah. But no berms? No berms. Absolutely no berms.
When we get to the next page, we're gonna get berms, baby.
Okay,
we
well,
got berms coming.
But beautiful opportunity in that northeast corner there for maybe some berms.
All right.
Just hold on.
Oh, we're going. Okay. Yep.
On the berms.
Yeah, okay, here we go. We got some berms coming. Let's go take a look at Buffalo here coming up. This one was fun, big facelift, big change here. You'll notice right off the bat that the drive-through parking concept gravel road through our middle of our park is now gone. We've relocated roughly a 40-car parking lot out there on the southern side using the current east access to get us into a parking lot. You'll also notice that I've provided for a not car size, but a bipedal size pathway to get from that parking lot to our our pavilion building right there. Directly to the south of that is the potential for some bags or some horseshoe pits, just up and right, just a little bit down and left right there. And then we have two new tennis courts or pickleball courts to the lower left, right in that area there. Basketball court wedged in between the parking lot and our ball fields and playground, now centrally relocated up to the in between the two ball fields. There you go, that geometric shape that you see right there, playground right in that area, which now gives us the ability to put these beautiful berms with trees surrounding all of these ballparks. What a specimen this would be to have. To no more bleachers anymore. Everyone brings a blanket, sits on the ground or whatever, but looks fantastic, gives you some shade. You'll also notice that we pushed the forest back in those areas to give a little breathing room, especially on the two sides, the easterly and westerly side, grew some grass in this whole thing and implemented potentially a trail of skiing and walking through the woods, connecting to the Buffalo and then back out to the Buffalo Hills Street kind of access. So there you go. And we also have room in those ball fields if we wanted to hypothetically put some soccer nets and get a couple soccer fields up in there. So there you go.
That's cool, I think. That one's exciting.
Rename it Berm City right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And just
Buffalo
super
Bedell Park.
fast note, I just foresee a future meeting regarding people parking in between your pavilion and your parking lot.
Yeah, could be.
Continuation of our previous conversations in other parks.
So I
Is there
missed-
room on the berms to get vehicles out there and lawn machines?
Yeah, down the space I left like 20 feet in between kind of the berms and the ball fields themselves to get equipment. But the berms would be able to be mowable, kind of up and over. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. But this is a thing. Fergus Falls, I believe it's Fergus Falls, has done their ball fields with berms, no bleachers. So
So I missed this meeting, and this is the park right by my house, and I really love what you guys did. The trails, because there are snowmobile trails back there. So that would be the only thing I'd be worried about is like thinking, the snowmobiles thinking like, oh, hey, we just extended our trail. So we'd have to make sure, obviously, there was some signage, but I really, really love it. And my idea would have also been to like remove the parking lot there. So I like that you have it right out front there. That looks really cool. So.
awesome. Do we want a special meeting for our next park guys or throw it into our next park board meeting? Trailside, Northtown, what do you want to do? Something to think about.
Probably do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do both.
Northtown's smaller than Triangle.
Lum Park to do.
Oh, yes, we do have Lum Park. You want to do Lum Park next?
I think that's one that could be coming down the chute pretty quickly.
Well, let's put it on our agenda next month if we can, and unless the agenda fills up, we'll do a little design on our Lum Park. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for the opportunity.
Do we want to vote on approving these master plans? I think that's what we're.
We have kind of
Oh,
in the
yeah.
past.
Yes?
I just have a question. Are you guys coming back around and then like doing the whole thing as a package? What's the final goal?
I can speak to that. So the basic final goal is this, is that we would take our complete master plan on our entire park system. We would attach money to current infrastructure, capital items, maintenance, and then attach money to what our potential future might look like. And then work that from 30 years backwards to two potential scenarios, just to maintain what we have cost-wise, and then to implement what we envision cost-wise, and then see if any of those could be commingled. But the idea here is like with this one in particular, Buffalo, is we are talking about a new playground equipment. So is now the time to just say, if we're talking about doing new playground, do we just put it where our master plan tells us we think we want to put this? So that's the idea, is it's kind of a roadmap of when projects come up.
Jesse and Troy, I think long ago we had an arborist like catalog every tree in our parks. Is there, with the storms, I know trees and lum are going to be a thing. Do you have I don't even know if there was a result of like, here's a map of every tree. I think just that might be useful if it exists for us to reference next meeting. If it doesn't exist, that's totally fine. I remember Paul mentioning he walked through them with an arborist, and that's my total recollection.
Well, I know earlier this summer, I seen somebody out there documenting trees. I
Yeah.
don't know who.
James has been working with that. I believe James Kromvik, our city tree inspector, was in some sort of grant funding, tree cataloging. I believe they were working on that this summer.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it, but I bet you James has some information on that.
Cool. Yeah, if you could. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion on approving these master plans?
Move to approve Gregory, Triangle, and Buffalo Hills parks as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. None being heard, motion carries. Thank you.
Kevin,
Thank you, guys.
Much appreciated.
pays well, that's the best part.
It does.
We can move on to public forum. No? Anyone online? Okay. And with that being said, any board member reports?
A board first?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, Andrew?
Thanks to Jesse and Troy. All the brush at Gregory's gone. It looks amazing. I see the one bush that's dangerously close to the box, so that seems like a real snag. But yeah, it looks awesome. Thanks so much for getting those out.
Dangerously close to what?
There's like a power box,
Oh, right.
and it's
Yeah,
about a foot, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, we had to get that one looked at, located. Yeah, good. I'm glad you like it.
You guys didn't tackle that one when you were clearing all that out of there?
Oh, yeah, we cut it to 3 feet. That was the easy part. Buried cables and zapping and.
That might grow back and just cover up that box. That would be.
Any other board member reports, comments?
I just have, just real quickly here, I just got a couple things to say. First of all, on the positive side, very much so. The Pumpkin Festival, fantastic, packed over there, awesome, went great. And to Andrew's point as well, the taking out of the shrubs, the trees, I'm sure the Northsiders appreciate us doing that, but the park looks fantastic, way, way better over there. So super awesome on that. On the not so positive note, I just want to say that I was at the beginning of the Pumpkin Festival. it was like a car free-for-all. I know this is like turning into a broken record, guys. Just bear with me. I'll get through this. But this was a little bit of a car free-for-all over there. When I was there first thing in the morning, there was a Bernick truck that managed to whittle his way all the way into the south side of the grandstand and stayed there. There was a U-Haul truck in there. There was 3 or 4 random cars in there, in and out, da-da-da-da-da. Not crazy about it. Not only just from the standpoint of the safety, but also just the way that it looks. And we've talked about it. The Friday before, I was going by there as well, and I saw one of our city trucks wedged in between the bathrooms and the bandstand. So just curious about what was going on there. I walked up, found out that the bathrooms were being cleaned. I just made a real quick inquiry about where all the cleaning materials were kept for the bathrooms. That's actually kept in the building. So this was literally city staff driving in, down the street, or down our little road, parking in between there just to clean the bathrooms. So where I'm going with this is I'm very quickly losing my appetite to fight this fight on the vehicles in Gregory Park, okay? So, and in fact, I'm actually kind of coming around to Deanne Barry's mindset of this is slightly hypocritical for us to say, wait, we don't want you guys in there, but we can't even manage to keep our own guys out of there. So I'm just going to go on the record one more time of saying that I don't think we should have cars in the middle of Gregory Park, really at any time, unless there is a specific need for the cars to be in Gregory Park. And I would like for the board to be the ones who say, this is an event coming up, we think this should be allowed or not allowed, but we have really confused inconvenient with difficult. That is not the same word, and I think a lot of people think that it is kind of the same, so I'm done with that. On down the line. Thanks, guys.
With that being said, I think we'll have this car thing figured out by at least 2027. So, you know, whether we put a gate up in there or whatever it is that we do, but, thanks, Kevin. Anyone else?
Her last official monthly meeting, we have to, a round of applause or a thank you for Kim for all she's done for the last 11,000 years, what it seems like, and, well, you look really good for 11,000, I'll give you that much. But yeah, so it's nice to see that you've done such a great job, and it's nice to see you know, that you're gonna have a nice retirement, as well as a nice party to go with it. And I'm only 2 months behind you.
You'd make a great campground host.
Yeah.
You would. Yes, obviously, Kim, thank you for years of dedicated work to this city. I know, yeah, I've got to experience a lot of those years calling you, and, you know, you pretty much knew my name, or knew me by voice, even if I tried to disguise it with someone else's name on my caller ID, but, so.
I know all the family names.
Yeah, so that didn't work, but, yeah, I just reiterate what Tim's saying, thank you so much. Notch 8, where in the heck is Notch 8?
MB
Right
Center.
at the Pacific Center.
Oh, okay.
It's a cool place.
4 o'clock, November 10th, Notch 8. So are you won't be at our next special meeting, will you?
We don't actually have a special meeting.
Yeah, do we have?
We said we were going to do it in our regular meeting.
Oh, we are?
Unless we want to do a special
Our
meeting.
master plan? Okay.
Our meeting with Kim.
I think we should do another one, but
Well, along with that, is anyone watching online, which I don't think there is, please contact the Mr. Mayor and sign up if you wish to be on the park board, because I'm 2 months away from throwing in the towel.
Oh, you've already got people inquiring, so, yeah. They said, what's coming up, and I said, Tim has basically told us he's on his way, so I hate to see you go.
November 8th,
November 8th?
election day, just so you know.
Judging.
What's the judge on an election
I'll
day?
be out of town.
All right, we'll just do it on our regular meeting.
Could do the
Let's not,
15th would work.
Lum Park could be a little time consuming,
That might be that's a good point.
Want to do 15th then?
That works for me.
yeah.
15th?
Yeah,
We're still past Kim's date, but.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I just think Lum Park is
Works for me.
gonna be, okay, so we will adjourn at this meeting to the 15th. Staff reports?
You should probably adjourn to Kim's thing, just to be safe.
Oh, good point.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Adjourn to the bar. Always wanted to do that.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Another one?
Okay. All right, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the boards. I just enlisted some of the champions since the last time we reported, so their smiling faces are there. The awards and plaques are being created for them and will be delivered or picked up by them. Postseason survey, as we do each year, found that it's more useful to do the survey concept over a meeting, so that will be happening. Winter sports, working on getting youth pond hockey and adult four pond hockey on our new registration software. So that will be hopefully ready to go before mid-November, shooting for November 1st. Great Pumpkin Festival, as stated by Park Board member Yeager, was really good. Despite how cold it was, wishing we would have done it last weekend, but within the cold weather, 650 people attended. We had a couple really cool additions, brought back the horseback riding, and then we gave out pumpkin seeds earlier that year, and kids were asked to grow at home, and then it was kind of be like a 4-H concept where they could bring their pumpkin and display it. And we had someone who grew a 60-inch circumference pumpkin. Yeah, it was huge, like 75 pounds or something. So that was pretty great, and so I was happy about it. A lot of new ideas for next year. So. Halloween, so small pause in the park type programming for dogs, canine costume contest, and then tricks for treats on actually Halloween, 3:30 to 5:30. So October 31st, and then we are accepting applications for the warming house attendant and pond hockey official.
Okay. Thank you.
650 people, well done.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. Any comments? Concerns, questions? Thank you, Katie. Jesse?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So you have the maintenance report before you. Not necessarily going to go through all the line items. I do want to add one thing that Troy and I had kind of talked about was the board was asking about the fishing pier, the Kiwanis Fishing Pier, and the possibility of extending either the Boom Lake and or the Lum Park fishing piers, using that to potentially extend those out. From what Troy was able to find, the materials may be dissimilar and may not be cohesive with the Boom Lake pier, but it seems like it would be a fit with the Lum Park one. Just ballparking it, we were thinking about 240 hours of time to strip down the other one and add it on to the Lum Park plus materials. So we're thinking it would potentially be a little over $12,000 between staff time and materials to extend the Lum Park fishing pier with the materials from the Kiwanis Pier. And that's assuming that the floats are in good shape. We really can't evaluate those until we kind of strip down the other one. Those can get a little bit pricey. What did you say, Troy, about like $500, give or take, per float? If they're damaged and unusable. So that is something we'd have to evaluate too. Either or, I mean, even if it was going to go back in the river, we'd have to evaluate those floats anyway. So I did want to update you on that. So that's generally about what we were thinking for staff time and materials to do that. I did want to echo the Great Pumpkin Festival. My kids had quite a fun time there and enjoyed quite a few of those activities. I do want to update the park board on our staff hiring. We have officially passed all the steps with our 2 new hires. We have Samuel Jensen, who's going to come into our park maintenance group. He starts, I believe, on the 14th. So a couple weeks out here for him. And then Carrie LaRose will be our new public works admin position to help replace Kim. And she'll actually get started on Monday. I was just informed that she is going to be able to start on Monday, so we're going to get a little bit of overlap with Kim, which will be great. So hopefully after a couple weeks of getting some good training with staff and with Kim, she'll be able to hit the ground running once Kim's gone.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Thank you, Director Dean. Yeah.
It seems like the vandalism, or maybe I'm just noticing it, but does it seem like ramped up a little bit, or I mean, sinks and water, drinking fountains and garage doors? Seems kind of intense.
Longer dark hours.
Okay. So there is footage on the vandal of the garage door. Is there footage on the vandals that hurt the other things? And what happens then? What follow-up? Do they have to come fix it, or? I'm just curious.
Well, yeah, assuming they're gonna catch them, the ones like, say, at J.C.'s Park that smashed the garage door down, there is, I don't know how Minnesota law works, but there's no requirement that they have to pay. Usually we get a call from, somebody like not Sentence to Serve, what's that other one? Restorative Justice.
Lakes Area Restorative Justice Program or whatever.
Yeah. And, you know, we usually, I've been there to meet with the kids. They want a little meat and try to scare them straight type stuff. Half the time the people don't show up. And then they usually want us to try to find something for them to do for a few hours in the parks. So generally by the time we take them out to the parks and babysit them, it's not really worth it. So we end up fixing it and usually paying for it.
What would you like to see done, Karen?
I don't know. I mean,
Clear in the woods
I'm
of
not
Buffalo.
sure. Yeah, like, I'm not sure what we could have them do. But I know they have to make those signs. I've seen them in, a sign isn't anything, but like, I feel like if you go into the Crow Wing County Services Building, there's like these signs that they made, that kids make as part of their time. There's different projects they have to do. But I don't know how you get them to show up and what we could do to teach them. But yeah, we have a lot of projects coming up. Maybe we have a list of things that would actually help you guys, but
Cleaning bathrooms.
I know, I was thinking
That can't be the-
bathrooms too. I was like, that can't be good.
Buster
But,
Dog Park, our hands and knees, clean
yeah,
Yeah, the dog park.
stuff up.
I mean, I'm serious though, but, because you guys spend a lot of time, and we obviously spend a lot of the city's money on, like, that drinking fountain is the one that, I'm gonna be really sad if that was the one that, I know someone who donated the money for it. Like, that's a really big bummer.
That is the one.
Yeah. So,
Well,
you know,
is them being charged off it's not off I mean, they can be charged, right? If they're caught?
That's up
system?
to the city prosecutor.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to get kids put in jail for doing this, but it would be,
Is it always kids? Are they always underage?
well, but it would be nice if they had to
Not
help
always.
fix
Not
it.
always, but I'd say the
Yeah, that's
majority,
right.
yes.
Yeah,
It would be great.
I'm probably knocking on a,
If you're a smart enough idiot vandalizer, you're under 18. That's the best way to put it.
Well, it's not new.
I know, it's not, I know, it's just like really hard to continue to see it on here, and it's like, we gotta find something else for them to do. Like, search for wooden pumpkins, or,
Some park board vigilante.
I don't know,
Should've gave them some pumpkin seeds, they could've grown pumpkins.
yeah. Yeah,
I am, but I focus mostly on.
Camouflage on.
I know this is a bigger project, but,
And I'll be off the board in a few weeks, so
Saying that.
all it takes is a phone call.
He's gonna be our color analyst.
No one can give me a hard time for driving heads through.
Tim's vigilante service.
oh wow, that's not what I'm saying either, take that off the record here. I'm not trying to start something.
It was Tim Boder, by the way, 21883.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Jaeger, so moved.
Kim's going away party?
Second, Jake.
Motion and second, all in favor?
And probably to that other meeting.
And to the other meeting. 15th.
Yep.
All right, thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
Aye.
Have a good show tonight, Kev.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
That'll be fun.
Oh wait, you're.